Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be another monthly wrap-up video. So I'm going to be talking about all the books, all the romances that I read last month in December. So these are my final reads of 2023. I read a total of 23 books, and yes, a couple of them were holiday romances just because it was the season. So let's just get started. The first book in this wrap-up is a holiday romance. It's Time to Shine by Rachel Reed. I actually did make a video talking about all of the holiday Christmas romances that I read at the end of 2023, like the last few months. So if you haven't watched that yet, go check it out. I won't go into too much detail about these December holiday reads, but I gave this one 3.5 stars. It's an hockey romance set over Christmas. It's a very soft and sweet romance. I did want to love it a bit more, but there's really not too much going on with this plot. It's very low-key, low angst, so if you're in the mood for that kind of read, this would work a lot better for you. But the main characters are both hockey players. They play for the same Canadian team. One of them is like the superstar and the other one is a newbie. The superstar is a total himbo. The newbie is a little bit gruff and grumpy. He doesn't get along too well with others, but he does get the chance to live with his teammate, to become roomies, and that's when they start crushing on each other. They are very adorable together, but like I said, there's not too much going on story-wise, so I did like it, but I definitely have read better from Rachel Reed. And then this next book I read because it was nominated in the Goodreads Choice Awards in the romance category. This is In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros. I also made a video talking about all of the nominations and how I felt about them, how I would rank those top 20 romances. This book is more towards the middle or lower half for me out of the top 20. I gave it 3.5 stars. I liked it, but also didn't like some parts. It's a military romance. I mean, Rebecca Yarros was known for her military romances before Fourth Wing came out, so I didn't have a problem with that, but it was just the choice to set this romance in the Afghanistan war that probably wasn't the best choice. I think it could have done so much better if this book was set during, you know, some fictional or made up war, because the thing about the romance is that I actually really enjoyed it. I love the angst, I love the push and pull, I loved how the hero was literally all about the heroine and always has been. Nate and Izzy first meet when they're 18 years old. They're on the same flight together and something goes wrong with the flight, so they kind of bond over that trauma. And then throughout the next few years, they're in and out of each other's lives. They're never at the right place and the right time, but they've always wanted each other, and Nate has always known that Izzy was it for him. And then in their present day, Izzy is in this war-torn country trying to find her sister, and Nate, who is still in the military doing some top secret stuff, he is now her bodyguard. There's still so much tension, so much chemistry between them. I loved the drama of their romance. It's 10 years in the making and there are so many ups and downs, but I was so into it. But I just wasn't a fan of the setting, especially when it didn't lead to anything for the actual story. So this definitely could have been a lot better, but overall it was just somewhere in the middle for me. Before I get into the rest of this video, I wanted to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Amari Nightlicks, and her Austin Heat series, which just had a new release come out. So book 1 is the one who undid me, book 2 is the one that got away, and book 3, the new one, is the one that I crave. All 3 books follow the same couple, Jake and Raquel. Jake is this rising NFL superstar, but he's getting pretty tired of his high-profile life and he just wants to settle down with a normal girl in his hometown of Austin, Texas. Raquel also moves to Austin, but this is because of her job as an escort. But she's also tired of her life, tired of her career as an escort. Both of these main characters want the same thing, but when they meet, they sort of hide their identities. So the Austin Heat series is a sports romance series with a lot of spice. It's like the naughty version of Virgin River and Friday Night Lights. So if you love those shows, check out the Austin Heat series. A big thank you to Amari Nightlicks for sponsoring today's video. And back to the rest of this video. And then another holiday romance that I read was Emergency Contact by Lauren Lane and Anthony LaDon, who are married. So Lauren Lane co-wrote with her husband here. I also really wanted to love this more because I do love me some Lauren Lane, even though I haven't read her in a while before this, but I give this one 3 stars. It was okay. I was very annoyed with the heroine here. But this is a second chance holiday romance between a formerly married couple. The heroine, Catherine, she unfortunately gets into an accident right before the holidays, and her emergency contact is still her ex-husband. So he gets called into the hospital to help her, take care of her, and he reluctantly brings her back home with him for the holidays. Things do go downhill when they try to travel back to his parents because Catherine makes so much trouble for the two of them while they're traveling. It does have a rom-com feel, but it was just too much and got on my nerves. It just didn't have a romantic feel to it. The bickering felt too childish for me, but it did deliver on the holiday vibes. My next read was Powerless by Elsie Silver. I finally read more of the Chestnut Spring series, and this one I actually talked about in a reading vlog, one of the last reading vlogs of 2023. I read some hyped romances for that vlog, and I mean, Powerless was a very hyped book of last year. This is book 3 in the Chestnut Spring series. It's Sloane and Jasper's book. Sloane is a ballerina, Jasper is this big hockey player, and they have been close friends ever since they were younger. Sloane is cousins with Jasper's best friends slash pseudo brothers, and she's had the biggest crush on him since forever. But now in present day, she is about to get married to someone else, but she realizes that she can't go through with it and runs away, and Jasper helps her. The two of them run away to the Eden Ranch, and they kind of live in their little bubble there. They get away from everything in the outside world, and they finally deal with each other's feelings for each other. It's a very feel-good read, very heartwarming, just like the rest of the series is. I am a huge sucker for Friends to Lovers, so I still gave this 4 stars. This was a solid read in the Chestnut Spring series. Next is 3 Holidays and a Wedding by Uzma Jalaluddin and Marissa Stapley. This one is, of course, another holiday read. It's a very diverse holiday romance that celebrates Christmas, Ramadan, and Hanukkah, which all happened around the same time in 2000. So I don't know if this qualifies as a historical romance, but it's definitely not set in like present day. It's also more on the women's fiction side. It follows 2 women and their personal lives, their love lives. They're both on the same flight to Toronto. One of them is going to her rich boyfriend and his snooty family, and the other one is on the way with her family to her sister's wedding. Something goes wrong with the plane though, and they do have to crash land, and when that happens, they kind of confess some truths to each other because they think they're gonna die. The town that they land in is a very hallmarky small town. It is cute if a little bit cheesy, but both of these heroines do have their own romances. The romance isn't the focus of the book though, it's definitely more of the woman's journeys into discovering what they want out of life. I would say this is a good read if you're looking for something that's not romance heavy. It was okay for me, so I give it 3 stars. Another popular 2023 romance that I read was A Long Time Coming by Meghan Quinn. This one was also nominated in the Goodreads Choice Awards. It's the 3rd book in the Kane Brothers series, but I read it as a standalone. I haven't read the rest of the series yet, and I read Totally Fine as a standalone. This one is yet another Friends to Lovers romance, and it was so cute. I gave it 4 stars. Leah and Breaker are best friends. They have been best friends since college. They're the type that finish each other's sentences. They're that close. But then sort of out of the blue, Leah gets engaged to her boyfriend, and Breaker is very confused about all of his feelings about that. He finally realizes that he is in love with his best friend, so he has to show her that he is the one that's meant for her and not her fiance. It's a very solid Friends to Lovers romance. Like, you really feel that friendship, that foundation between them, and I kind of love that it was very slow burn. Like, it felt very real, and that these two were very platonic friends at the beginning of the book. It's not until halfway when the romance starts to pick up. So yes, it is pretty slow burn. Everything just felt very genuine here. I love the friendship. I love their whole friend group. They're all so supportive and basically shoving these two together because they knew that they were always meant for each other. So this is a great read. Friends to Lovers is one of my all-time favorite tropes, and I was just so happy reading this one. And then my next December read was also a sort of Friends to Lovers romance. It's more like enemies to Friends to Lovers, but it's You Again by Kate Goldbeck. This one was another nomination in the Goodreads Choice Awards, which is why I read it, but I really did not like this one. I'm giving it 2.5 stars. I struggled hard with these main characters. They've met each other a couple times in New York City, but every time they do, they get off on the wrong foot. It's when they're literally at rock bottom in their lives that they become friends. Like, they share in their misery together. Josh has ruined his father's restaurant. Ari has just gotten divorced and is still sending nudes to her ex-wife. They go from enemies to friends, but without the benefits. They hang out all the time, and honestly, I kind of wish that they just stayed friends. They just worked a lot better as friends. Like, when they involve feelings, this heroine makes the worst decisions ever. And I also thought Josh was such a bland hero. I really just did not get invested in their characters at all. So this book was not the best one for me. Here is another holiday read. This is Faking Christmas by Carrie Winfrey. This one was absolutely adorable. It's kind of ridiculous, like it does have a very silly plot, but I was into it. It's a fake dating Christmas romance where the heroine pretends that she's the owner of her twin sister's farm. She lies to her boss about this, so when her boss invites himself over for the holidays to the farm, she can't say no. So she has to pretend to be the owner of this farm. She pretends to know how to deal with all the animals. She pretends to be a good cook. She pretends to be a mother to her nieces. And she also has to pretend to be married to her greatest enemy, who is her brother-in-law's best friend. So it's an enemies to lovers romance that is so entertaining. It's silly and wild and hilarious, and I had such a great time reading this one. The romance was great too. Like, you can definitely tell the hero falls first here, and the Christmas vibes were excellent. So if you're looking for a good Christmas romance, I know the holidays are already over, but you can at least save this one for the 2024 holidays. And then I finally got to reading King of Greed by Anna Huang. This is the third book in the Kings of Sin series. This is the groveling romance that I was so hyped for. Did I love it as much as I wanted to? Not really. I still really enjoyed myself. I gave it 4 stars, but it wasn't the 5-star read that I was expecting. If you know me, you know that I love groveling romances. Like, groveling romances are my jam. So I had such high expectations for Alessandra and Dominic's romance, and even though I did like the groveling here, it wasn't as impactful as I wanted it to be, because they pretty much instantly get divorced and Dominic instantly starts groveling. Like, I wanted a bit more angst here, and I also wanted to know them a bit more before they got married, like the beginnings of their romance. We get a little bit of it, but not as much as I wanted. I just wanted more of these two because I saw such good potential in them, but I still did have a great time with them. I mean, I'm never gonna say no to a groveling hero, and Dominic really does his best to win back his wife. Yet another Christmas romance that I read and enjoyed was Snowed In for Christmas by Jacqueline Snow. It's such an adorable grumpy sunshine holiday romance, and it's got the classic snowed in trope. The heroine works at a sorority house and the hero is the college football coach. They are neighbors, but then a storm comes in that kills all of the electricity. She has nowhere to go and no one to turn to except for this hero, who she actually went on a date with a little while ago, and he ended up ghosting her after it. But she is such a sweetheart of a person. Like, I adored Becca so much. She is pure sunshine, pure light. So she does try to make the best of this whole awkward situation. It was just a cute read. It had a lot more depth than I was expecting, but it was good. We have a grumpy hero who grows soft only for the heroine, and bonus points, it was a lot steamier than I expected too. Like, they get up to a lot of stuff while they're snowed in. And then I read My Darling Bride by Elsa Madden Mills. This is a free audio that you can download through KU. It's a new standalone sports romance with the marriage of convenience trope. It's got a wild meet cute where the heroine steals the hero's Lamborghini as a getaway car. She's on the run from her abusive ex-boyfriend, but she did leave a note for the hero to tell him where to pick the car up, because she's normally a good person. Emmy runs a bookstore and everything, but then Graham finally tracks her down and he tells her that he won't get her arrested if she marries him. So they do the whole marriage of convenience thing. It's marriage in name only because Graham wants to get his inheritance for his brother. This romance was so adorable. I'm giving this book 4 stars because I enjoyed it so much. I mean, this hero literally buys the bookstore for the heroine when it's going out of business. goodness. It's very entertaining. There's really never a dull moment here. Like, there's drama with their exes. Graham has to decide whether his football career is worth all of the head trauma. I will say this hero is an idiot sometimes. Like, he does get very frustrating with his push and pull, but I guess I was just in a very forgiving mood when I read it because I didn't find myself annoyed at all. Maybe it's because the audio was so good, but yeah, this is a very fun marriage of convenience sports romance. And again, you can grab the audiobook for free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And then one of my absolute favorite reads of December, one of my absolute favorite reads of the year, was Caught Up by Liz Tomforde. This one I also talked about in my reading vlog, but I'm here again to talk about how much I love this one. I gave it 5 stars. It's book 3 in the Windy City series. It's a baseball romance this time, and it was so adorable. Oh my goodness. I'm still not over Kai and his son and Miller. So it's a single dad romance, a falling for the nanny romance, and it's just such a feel-good, heartwarming read. The heroine, Miller, is Kai's coach's daughter and his new nanny. There's so much chemistry and so much banter between them right from the very beginning. The banter here is a plus. I loved it. I mean, the whole time I was reading this one, I just had the biggest smile on my face. It was so wonderful. I loved the main characters. I loved all of the secondary characters. It was absolutely fantastic and lived up to all of the hype that it had. Another KU audio that I read was The Best Laid Plans by Carla Sorensen. This one was pretty boring. I give it 3 stars. It's a home renovation romance. The hero is a grumpy football player. The heroine is a sunshiny historian. Burke just inherited this rundown house from his late best friend, but he doesn't want anything to do with it because it reminds him of his dead best friend. Charlotte is the restoration expert and the house's renovation manager. She wants to preserve the house. He wants to completely rebuild it so he can sell it off as soon as possible. It's a very slow burn romance between them. Like, not only do they want completely different things for the house, Burke is also just so sunken in his grief over his friend. The story definitely had a more somber feel to it than I expected, which might be why I wasn't in the mood for it, but I also just never connected with story or the characters. I found myself zoning out sometimes when I was listening to this. Like, I had to replay the chapter that I zoned out of. So it was just okay for me. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I also read Trick Shot by Kayla Gross. This is a very spicy holiday romance that everyone was talking about, so I had to give it a try. It's an MMF novella, so a quick read, and I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't as amazing as I thought it was gonna be. I struggled with it a bit. Like, it was still a very steamy read. It definitely delivered on the spice, but I didn't love the main characters. It's set during Christmas Eve, where the heroine is supposed to board a flight home for the holidays. It gets canceled, and this is when she comes across one of the heroes, Leo, who she thinks is actually his famous twin brother. For some reason, Leo decides to go along with this mistaken identity to let her believe that he is his brother, Lucas. He brings her home to his apartment where his best friend slash part-time lover is also staying for the holidays. Of course, all of this amazing steam happens, but she's still under the impression that one of the heroes is another person. It goes over predictably and all is forgiven very easily. Honestly, I could have done without this whole plot and drama. If it was just a smutty novella, this would have been perfect. And then my next book was a sequel that I was very excited about because I do love the series. I read Own Me by K.A. Tucker. This was like a surprise sequel to the Wolf Hotel series. It ended at 4 books, but then the author decided to write this 5th book, and I kind of wish that she didn't, because I did not like this one. I actually DNF'd it. I'm so sad about it too that I couldn't even finish it. If I had to rate it, I'd give it 2 stars because it went in a direction that I did not like. If you want to avoid any spoilers for this one, you can skip ahead to my next book, but basically, spoiler alert, Henry, the hero, finds out that he has a long lost daughter, and she's like a whole teenager. He had an affair with his teacher when he was underage, and that whole underage thing was glossed over way too easily. And I was just like, why did this have to happen? It kind of ruined the romance between Henry and Abby for me, honestly. So I just was not a fan. As soon as I read this, I was like, oh my god, no way. No way this is real. I read the book until maybe a quarter of the book, and that's when I had to put it down. So for me, I'm just gonna pretend that this 5th book does not exist. Okay, well, my next December read was Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. This is another audiobook that you can grab on Kindle Unlimited, and this one I gave 3 stars. I love the premise of this one, but I didn't love the execution of it. It's a gamer romance, and the main characters are both on the older side. Maggie is a single mom at 48, and she is a total hermit, but she makes a deal with her son. He's in college, and she wants him to socialize more, so he agrees that he'll socialize more if she does the same. So she joins this online gaming community that the hero is also a part of. Aiden is 50 years old, and his entire life is basically just caring for his sick mom who refuses to believe that she is sick. So Aiden and Maggie become online friends, but Aiden thinks that Maggie is an 80-year-old grandma, and Maggie thinks that Aiden is her son's age, so they don't really have feelings for each other just yet until they finally meet in person. Then they realize that they're actually close in age, and they become amazing friends. It's a very slow burn friends to lovers romance. Both Maggie and Aiden were different characters and very interesting to read about. They both have family issues that they deal with throughout the book, and I love the fact that Maggie becomes so protective over Aiden because of what he goes through with his family. This really could have been 4 stars, but I did not like the ending. It felt so unfinished, and we never really get a resolution to the big issue that Aiden deals with throughout the entire book. So while I enjoyed the romance, the way that the plot wrapped up, or more like the way that it didn't, it just wasn't for me. And one of my biggest bookish pet peeves is unfinished endings, and this one, it really did knock down some points. These next 2 books were also some more spicy holiday romances that I read. So this first one is I'll Be Home by Tate James and Heather Long. This one was like a surprise release from Tate James. I had no idea that she was even writing a Christmas romance, but she did. It's a co-write with an author that I've never read before, but I do love Tate James, so I had to read this one. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It is a Christmas romance, but it does get dark and violent, and it's also by choose because it is Tate James. The heroine is a journalist who's just been assigned to investigate these missing children in a small town, and it's the same small town that she grew up in as an orphan. When she arrives there, she reunites with the 3 other orphans that she was really close to growing up, but things are a little iffy between them because she thinks that they grew up out of the system and completely forgot about her, and they think that she was the one who left them. It's a whole mess, and we do find out that the heroine went through some horrific things as a teenager when the guys turned 18 and were forced to leave the orphanage. But the romance itself is very fun and very hot. I loved how the heroine was a total Grinch and hated Christmas, and the 3 heroes are the ones who are all in when it comes to her. I mean, one of them is a bit more angry than the rest, but still, they're definitely super into her. And then there's the whole investigation thing. There's some suspense with those missing children that is related to what the heroine went through. It gets pretty intense, and there are multiple scenes with sexual assault, so be aware of that. It's absolutely not a lighthearted holiday rom-com. I mean, it's still funny sometimes, but it gets gruesome. I love Tate James though, so this totally worked for me. And then the other spicy holiday romance that I read was Frisky the Snowman by Lauren Beale. And I'm honestly kind of embarrassed that I even read this one because it's a snowman romance. The hero is literally a snowman. He gets the power to shift between snowman and man with this magical hat. And yes, the heroine does have sex with him as a snowman. So I gave this one 2.5 stars. I can't say that I really liked it that much. It was interesting for sure. It's short and weird and smutty. I probably shouldn't have read this one, but I was too curious not to. I also read some paranormal romances from Suzanne Wright. I read books 2 and 3 in her Phoenix Pack series. I loved book 1, so I was really excited to read more of it. So book 2 is Wicked Cravings. This one I gave 4 stars. It was great, another solid shifter romance from Suzanne Wright. We have a heroine who has had the biggest crush on the hero since forever. They're both wolf shifters, they're part of the same pack, but she's finally had enough of him, and Jamie is finally ready to move on from Dante. And now that Dante has lost her affections, he's feeling very butthurt about it. He's like, why isn't Jamie paying attention to me anymore? And we have a role reversal where he's the one who follows her around this time. So that was a lot of fun to read. I do love a pursuing hero. They sort of dance around each other here, and then they finally start up this no strings attached relationship. And just like in Feral Sins book 1, the scene was fire here. There's just something about these wolf shifters that goes hard. But the romance was good and entertaining. There's this constant push and pull. Like, Jamie has some secrets that prevent her from going all in with Dante, and then Dante has his own issues with bonding with true mates. The only thing I will say about these two is that they are a bit too similar to the main characters from the first book. Like, we have another sassy, mouthy heroine, another over-the-top, possessive alpha hero, although Dante is actually the beta of the pack. But that's kind of what I love to read from Suzanne Wright, so I didn't have an issue with this feeling a bit too repetitive. Book 3 is Carnal Secrets, and this one I didn't enjoy quite as much. I'm giving this 3.5 stars. This one is about a couple that was teased heavily in book 2, so I had to read this one immediately. The hero Nick is the alpha of another pack, and he knows that Shea, the heroine, is his true mate. She's a submissive wolf in the Phoenix pack, but he refuses to claim her. And because of his rejection of their mating bond, this causes her so much hurt and agony. He does it for protective reasons, but still, his rejection does cause her so much heartache. So she has enough, and Shea runs away, and Nick gives up his pack to follow her. Basically, this is a groveling rejected mates romance, and I really wish that I liked it more. I mean, the first half of the book was great. I loved the angst. I loved how determined Nick was to win Shea back. But after a while, things just dragged, the story dragged, and I lost interest in it. There is a whole plot with some anti-shifter extremists that's woven into the story, and that was interesting, but not enough to make me as invested as it was in the first half of the book. It was still nice though to read about Nick and his groveling, how he was a lot softer than the first two heroes in the series, but their romance just dragged on too much. And then my final holiday read, my final Christmas romance of 2023 was Big Nick Energy by Morgan Elizabeth. I read this for my book club for Ravished by Romance. We had to read a holiday romance for December, of course. I was really excited about this one because of how much I loved 'Tis a Season for Revenge last Christmas. So I had some high hopes for this one, and it was great. I definitely didn't love it as much, but it's still a 4-star read. This one is a standalone in the same series. It's about the single mom who left her abusive husband in 'Tis a Season for Revenge. Shay, the heroine, is rebuilding a new life for her and her 2 girls, and they're coming across their first Thanksgiving and Christmas since the divorce. Her new friend slash former Tinder date invites them over to his dad's place, his dad's farm. And that's where she meets Connor, the hot, sweet cowboy dad who is so good to her and her girls. The beginning of the romance does start off a bit rough though, because Connor messes up with her daughters by telling them about the elf on a shelf tradition. Shay did not have plans to do the whole elf on a shelf thing. She did not have the time or the energy for it. So Connor decides to drive an hour every night to set up the elf on a shelf at Shay's house. This is how he works his way into Shay's heart and Shay's life, because he knows that she and her family are it for him. It's an extremely sweet book, like cavity-inducing sweetness. Connor treats Shay like a queen, so it's a very feel-good romantic book, and it's one of my favorite Christmas romances that I read over the holidays. And then my last 2 reads of 2023 were both hockey romances. This one is The Pucking Wrong Number by C.R. Jane. I've been curious about this one ever since I heard of it, because it's like a dark hockey romance, which I guess became a thing last year. This is the first book in the Pucking Wrong series about a hockey player who is at the top of his game, and he accidentally sends a text to the wrong number. So Lincoln and Monroe start texting and bantering from this, and when Monroe sends a photo of herself to Lincoln, he instantly falls in love. It's a very dark and obsessive love though. Like, he literally becomes her stalker. He is legitimately unhinged. He breaks into her home. He does some sexual things that she has no idea about. She's in college and she just thinks that she's starting to date this very hot and normal hockey player. Lincoln 100% reminded me of a Jessica Kane hero. So if you're not a fan of those types of unhinged psychotic heroes, this book probably won't be for you. But if you don't mind something wild and ridiculous and fun, then definitely give this one a try because I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. And then my final read of 2023 was In Your Wildest Dreams by Rebecca Genshak. This one is a complete opposite kind of hockey romance. It is very sweet, very adorable. We have a much more wholesome hero here. This was my first time reading Rebecca Genshak. It's book 4 in her Wildcat hockey series, but I read totally fine as a standalone. The main characters first meet at the hero's hockey game where the heroine is with her jerk boyfriend. Ash sees Bridget being ignored by that boyfriend, so he tosses her a puck with his phone number attached, which is probably every hockey fangirl's fantasy, right? But nothing comes out of it until they reunite when Ash is injured and Bridget becomes his nurse. She's single now and he is all in winning her heart. She does have trust issues after what she went through with her ex, but Ash is the sweetest and most patient man. It's just a very classic hockey romance. I did enjoy Rebecca Genshak's writing. I didn't love this one quite as much as The Pucking Wrong Number, so I'm giving it 3.5 stars, but it was a very sweet read and I definitely want to go back and read the rest of the Wildcat hockey series. And that's it for all of my December reads. These were all the books that I read at the end of 2023. As always, let me know your thoughts if you read any of these books. Links to everything will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you all next time. Bye!